You have few friends. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe no one you'd really tell everything to right now. From the outside, that looks like a problem, like loneliness, like weakness, like something that needs to be fixed. And maybe you've thought that yourself, that something is off, that other people are just better at this, that you're somehow different. But what if that's the wrong conclusion? What if what others see as your deficit is actually a capability? Not always, not in every case, but more often than you think. This video isn't about romanticizing loneliness. It's about understanding something that psychology has found about people who live with few or no close friendships, and what they develop because of it, what others don't have. We'll get there. But first, we need to understand why the question itself is being asked wrong. Here's something most people don't know. People with many friends are, on average, no less lonely than people with few. That's not a contradiction. That's research. Because loneliness doesn't come from numbers. It comes from the feeling of not truly being seen. And you can have that with 30 contacts and not have it with 2. We grow up with an equation. Many friends means being popular. Being popular means being valuable. Being valuable means everything is okay with you. That equation is so deeply wired into us that we rarely question it. But look at what actually happens. Someone has 30 contacts on their phone. 20 of them only reach out when they need something. 10 text on your birthday. And at the end of the day, when it really counts, there's maybe one person, maybe none. And someone else has 2 people in their life. 2 who actually know who they are. 2 who would pick up at 3 in the morning. Who has the problem here? The answer isn't in the number. It's in what people with few friends do with that time and energy. Here is the first ability. People who have few friends invest differently. Not less, differently. Someone maintaining 50 relationships has limited time per relationship, limited attention, limited trust. That's math, not judgment. Someone with 2 or 3 relationships gives those relationships something most people never experience: real presence. Not a conversation squeezed between 2 others, not a message between 100 others, but genuine attention. British anthropologist Robin Dunbar researched how many real relationships a person can actually hold. His answer, between 3 and 5 truly close ones. Not 30, not 20, 3 to 5. Everything beyond that is a form of maintenance. People with few friends often already live in that range, not because they failed, but because they, consciously or not, kept only what actually holds. That's not a limitation, that's clarity. The second ability is different. The first was about how you love others. This one is about how well you know yourself. People who receive a lot of social validation often learn who they are through the mirror of others. They know who they are because others tell them who they are. Funny, reliable, the life of the party. That's not wrong, but it's fragile, because when the validation disappears, who are you then? You might know this moment. The first evening alone after a long relationship, the first day in a new city where no one knows you, the moment when suddenly nobody asks how you're doing. For some people, that's the beginning of a crisis. For people who've spent a long time with themselves, it's usually just a Tuesday. They've spent hours living in books, in thoughts, in questions nobody else asks. And in doing so, they've developed something that psychologists describe as a high degree of self-knowledge. They know what they think, independent of what others think. They know what they feel, independent of what others feel. They know who they are even when no one's watching. That's not arrogance, that's groundedness. And groundedness is the rarest quality in a world that's constantly trying to pull you in a direction. But before we continue, I need to say something I can't leave out. An honest moment now. Not everything behind having few friendships is a strength. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of closeness, fear of being seen. Sometimes it's a pattern from childhood, a withdrawal that once was protective and has simply stayed. Sometimes it's genuine loneliness, not chosen, not conscious, just painful. That distinction matters because there's a difference between someone who has few friends because they go deep and someone who has few friends because they're protecting themselves. Both can look the same from the outside. Inside, they're very different. The first feels whole. The second feels cut off. If you're in that second group right now, that's not a judgment. It's a signal. But for everyone else, keep going. The third ability. Imagine you want to change something. Switch jobs, end a relationship, move somewhere new. Something that fundamentally shifts your life. Someone with many friends asks many people and gets many opinions. One says, do it. Another says, too risky. A third says, wait a little longer. A fourth asks, what does your family think? And at some point, you no longer know what you actually want yourself, because too many voices are in your head. People with few close relationships have this problem less often, not because they don't ask anyone, but because they've learned to trust their own voice before they hear the voices of others. That's called emotional independence, and it's not coldness, not selfishness. It's the ability to make a decision that is truly your own. And decisions that are truly your own are ones you regret less, not because they're always right, but because you know that was mine. And the fourth ability builds directly on that, but it's the one most people expect the least. The fourth ability surprises most people. Because in a world that constantly demands connection, it has become almost invisible. It's the ability to be alone without having to endure it. Most people can't do this. Really, they can't. The moment silence arrives, they reach for their phone. The moment no one is around, the TV goes on. The moment an hour is free, it gets filled. Not because they want to, but because being alone feels wrong. Because it triggers thoughts they don't want to hear, because it creates an emptiness they don't know. People who've learned to live with little social connection have trained this ability, whether they wanted to or not. They can sit in the silence, think, feel, be, without needing anyone to confirm that it's okay. Psychologist Esther Buchholz called it the underestimated power of solitude. The ability to restore yourself without external stimulus. And in a world of constant stimulation, that's not a weakness, that's a superpower. But what happens when someone with these four abilities meets a real connection? Now something that sounds contradictory. The four abilities, depth, inner world, independence, silence, are exactly the abilities that make real connection possible in the first place. Not replace it, make it possible. Someone who doesn't know who they are can't truly show up. Someone who depends on validation doesn't fully give themselves. Someone who can't hold the silence flees into relationships instead of stepping into them. Most people seek connection without first being connected to themselves. That's why so many friendships stay empty despite the large number. People who've learned to be alone bring something into relationships that very few have. They don't need the relationship. They choose it. And that is the difference between a connection that holds and one that's simply there. If you're someone who has few or no close friends and sometimes feels ashamed of that, you don't need to be ashamed. You're not broken. You're not incapable. You're not less. Maybe you've simply learned to go deeper than most, to be quieter than most, to be more real than most. Some people need an audience to know who they are. You don't. If you recognized yourself in this video, write depth over crowd in the comments. No explanation needed, just depth over crowd. So we know there are more of us than people think.